NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original. It's fucking great.
What makes a video game? Is it the story and the plot? Is it the characters? Is it the graphics or the interactivity afforded to us? These were questions I had to ask myself when I was playing through Lifeless Planet Premier Edition on the Xbox One. I've always loved video games, but now that I'm pushed to define that which I love, I find it hard to put it into words. I can't say for a fact that the plot of a game is why it's great, or the sound design, or these high-fangled next-gen graphics. Hell, I can't even say if it's the action or the characters that would make it what it is. In the simplest terms, it's a tale being told, or more elaborately, a video game. This train of thought brought me to a rather startling conclusion, and that conclusion is that Lifeless Planet isn't really a game at all. It's just a tale being told. Lifeless Planet is a singularly unique title that was created by one man, David Board, and it started life as a Kickstarter campaign. This is a port from the original PC version, and I never got the chance to play Lifeless Planet on PC, so as I entered the world, I really didn't know what to expect. You awake in a desolate and empty world, having spent 15 years in cryosleep to explore a new habitable planet, but something's gone wrong. The world used to be full of vegetation and rich minerals, but something's happened to transform the once rich world into a flying dead rock. Your sole mission is to find your crew and find out what's happened. It's an interesting take and setting, and it would have been all too easy to take this premise and throw in some towering alien overlords, laser weapons, and have a rampant shooter. Lifeless Planet goes in totally the opposite direction, and instead manages to build a sorrowful and melancholy atmosphere that penetrates the whole experience. Within the first 5 minutes of gameplay, I stumbled across an abandoned settlement flying a Soviet flag, thus more intrigue. The plot of Lifeless Planet is the predominant component to the title, so I won't go into too much detail as to avoid spoilers, but know that it's an endearing, unsettling and surprisingly emotional story all rolled into one. There's a few short cinematic scenes, and while there's not a great deal of voice acting, I did love what there was. Exploring the environments and finding lost files, tapes and messages from the planet's previous occupants builds a fantastic backstory, and the whispered Russian voice logs, helpfully translated into English on your PDA, kept pulling me back into the moment. It's nice to see Russians portrayed as more than the generic bad guy. Now, there's a time a few years ago that every game had the evil Russian. Once again, it would have been all too easy to run with such a commonplace stereotype and turn away from the unique approach that Lifeless Planet has taken. By and large, the controls on Lifeless Planet are easy to get to grips with, and interacting with the world can be done by either picking objects up or, a little later in the game, by using a robotic arm. Movement is simple, and with a handy helmet light, there's really little to fear in the dark. The only real downfall I found was while I was using my jetpack to jump around the world. There's very little control while in the air, and it takes some getting used to. I found more often than not that I fell to my death from a mistimed boost because I screwed up the initial jump point. It got quite annoying near the end of the story as the platforming sections became more prominent, and I became very intimate with the sound of my character splatting against some rocks. While no one wants to hear themselves slapping down to their deaths, the sound design in Lifeless Planet is brilliant. There's an excellent score, and hearing my faint breath reverberating inside of my helmet really put me in the Lifeless Planet. I can't say enough about the sound design. It is worked perfectly into the barren, almost minimalistic ambience of the title. I think that Lifeless Planet Premier Edition is stunning, but not for its graphics. They're subpar in many cases, but they do an adequate job of building the world. Lifeless Planet isn't beautiful because of how many polygons the developer can stack on top of each other. Do we still use polygons? But because the world that it creates. For the most part, the animations are smooth and your spacesuit adorned astronaut runs and jumps just fine. I did notice some jumpy movement when turning on the spot, but the effect was negligible and doesn't detract anything from the overall experience. The art design is fantastic in a barren kind of way. As I journeyed through the different areas looking to uncover what's happened, I was able to see distant vistas and mountain ranges, as well as vast, almost insurmountable deserts. The changes between wilderness and previously established civilizations is a fantastic amalgamation, and the first time that I wandered around the abandoned Soviet camp, I was struck by the absence of life. and an adversary. Lifeless Planet is unique in that there's no real enemy in the title. There are dangers, of course, tricky platforming sections where I needed to use careful bursts from my ineffective jetpack in order to traverse mighty chasms, and a danger from the planet itself. But I was slightly wrong-footed by the lack of an antagonist. Even Mario had Bowser. And that's another thing that makes me question Lifeless Planet's validity as a video game. The Xbox One Marketplace describes Lifeless Planet Premier Edition as a third-person action-adventure, but I think they have it wrong. I really like Lifeless Planet and strongly recommend it to anyone who wants an interactive story, but there's something about this arid and desolate gameplay that makes me pause in the description. The way I see it, I journeyed through the Lifeless Planet with my character. There was no great quest, no mighty battle, and while there are puzzle elements, it's not even a puzzle game. It's a rather redundant point, as it clearly is a video game. I mean, I played it on my Xbox One after all, but the description seems inapt. After finishing the game, I felt like I do after watching a thought-provoking and intense sci-fi movie. An experience that I enjoyed and I'll talk about for hours, but the character's achievements weren't my own. It was his tale, and I was just along for the ride. Lifeless Planet is a unique title that makes some bold choices. All of the risks that have been taken pay off in what is probably one of the most surprising games of the year. The desolate and arid landscape, along with the melancholy and slightly unsettling ambience of the title, pulled me in from the start. There are some issues with the controls feeling sluggish and unresponsive at times, however nothing that ruins the overall experience. Lifeless Planet isn't your typical game, but it's one hell of a journey.